If I'm in an environment where I see overly aggressive people, overly hostile people, people who are verbally abusive when they try to express their thoughts and feelings to others,
Yes.
inadvertently, if I'm a young person, a young man, because these are the type of people that I typically work with, you're impressing these ideas upon them. And then
Yes.
that becomes normal
And they're
after a
picking
while.
them up, right? They're picking them
Right.
up.
They pick up those traits, as you said,
Yes.
and they start to embody them. Now, what I like to break down in therapy is that they're not inherent to you. That would be the difference, I would say, between a toxic person
Okay.
and a trait.
All right, RJ. And so I want to get into our topic, toxic relationships. And so
Mhm.
I titled this one, right? It takes two to toxic. What is can you tell me what this means to you, right? This is phrase, toxic relationships. It's a new phrase that's kind of being thrown around out there. And so, as
Yes.
a mental health professional, give us a good definition, meaning of that phrase, what you would consider it means.
And yeah, I like that you prefaced it with the idea that it's a word and phrasing that people are using very frequently now, which
Yes.
I have my own reservations in general. Like we said before we started recording, I think it's important that anytime you're going to have a conversation with somebody, particularly a serious one, and one in depth enough, you need to understand and agree on what the definitions of words are. So that way we're operating in good faith for the discussion. So
Yes.
when people use the word toxic relationship, so relationship, I think we all kind of have an idea of what that is. I think most people, when they're using that phrase, they're referring to romantic relationships with somebody. I am not homosexual, so I can only speak to heterosexual relationships from my personal and professional lived experience. So on the toxic side, what I think is happening to a certain degree is a concern about pattern of male behavior. Some people put that under the purview of masculinity. Some people say that it is inherent things that men tend to do or behave in a certain way when they're interacting with women, trying to court them, dating them, wanting to be married to them, what have you. And as a result, it's making a lot of men feel a little bit apprehensive. There's a really big debate, what I see going on right now between men and women. And I see a huge chasm of misunderstanding
Yes.
that's happening,
Yes.
where men are feeling like they're being vilified and being told that they're the villains of these stories, where seemingly normal interactions that we used to say were socially acceptable are no longer so.
Yes.
And but at the same time, there are elements that women are verbalizing that I 100% agree with should be labeled as toxic. If there are things that you're doing that are making people uncomfortable, if more importantly to me, you're not listening to what your partner or people around you that care about you or you care about them are telling you that they would prefer that you stop doing and you choose not to, I could see that being under the umbrella of toxic. So that's sort of how I think about it. It's not one particular word or one particular phrase. I could see that there's a pattern of behavior where if I'm going into situations where I'm not really listening that well, I'm not really considering how other people feel, and I'm sort of steamrolling them with my own ideas and expectations, that could be looked at in a form of being toxic.
I love how you put that, RJ, because it goes right into my next question, right? Because you're essentially telling us it's not is it well, I would guess I'll ask the question, right? Is
Mhm.
it toxic people or is it toxic traits, right? And so I would say that
Sure.
you're saying that it's almost toxic traits, right? People are
Yeah.
choosing these things and
Yeah.
acting on them purposely. And so I will let you expand on that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think for a lot of us, and I think this is where therapy can be such a great tool for folks. For a lot of us, in my experience, what I've noticed is a lot of us have never had our thoughts or our ideas challenged. A lot of us, we grow up in certain environments, and I'll just speak from my own worldview. I'm a black and brown man. My father is black, my mother is Latina. So I know what it's like to come from those communities. I know a lot of the struggles that we go through. I have very humble beginnings and even up to this point. And so when it comes to trying to understand people's worldview, their perception, their behaviors, my belief is that majority of it stems from our upbringing.
Hmm.
The environments that you grow up in, the areas that you grow up in, the people that are around you shape your reality because
Yeah.
perception is reality for pretty much everybody.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
because of that, if I'm in an environment where I see overly aggressive people, overly hostile people, people who are verbally abusive when they try to express their thoughts and feelings to others.
Yes.
Inadvertently, if I'm a young person, a young man, because these are the type of people that I typically work with, you're impressing these ideas upon them. And then
Yeah.
that becomes normal
And they're
after a
picking
while.
them up, right? They're picking them
Right.
up.
They pick up
Right.
those traits, as you said,
Yes.
and they start to embody them. Now, what I like to break down in therapy is that they're not inherent to you. That would be the difference, I would say, between a toxic person and a trait. If
I
I'm
like
saying you're in person, then it means I'm saying you are inherently
born
born that
toxic.
way. So
Yes.
there's no way to help you, right?
I like that.
Most people, that's not true. You can't genetically break that down, right?
Yes.
What you would say is that maybe you've come from such a dysfunctional environment that you've learned to embody traits and behaviors that are no longer healthy or no longer necessary for the environment that you were in versus where you are today. So therapy can be that tool to help challenge that viewpoint and help you kind of outgrow maybe some of these poor behaviors. If that
Yeah.
makes